Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 8th of February. Well, we had the rising white now starting to fade a little bit here as we had a soft day. I mean, it was still finished lower. Not that dramatic. Not much separation here between yellow, magenta falling. Fine on the short rising, but a little bit of a turn up from DSC Steel was enough to just keep it from doing anything significant. Obviously, down at that 38%, 44.40 range would certainly be much more interesting. But with white beginning the fade, the question will be, do we get a turn up of magenta? And that would be the immediate turnaround. And so the 50% becomes, I think, again, pivotal 45.10 range. Above that, I think is definitely going to flip to a positive, and potentially could see a reversing of this. One of those, not very often, double spider situations. We'll keep an idea, see what happens with that. But that would require a pivot of green back up, cyan moving lower, and it would have to be pretty significant. We'd already be above 50% by the time that took place. So that's what I would be focused on there. For the NASDAQ, it's going to be the 38%, which is interesting now because we're starting to see a decline. And whenever 100% declines and you turn around with a buy signal, usually calls price up towards the 100% level. It doesn't have that yet. This is a little bit cleaner from a rejection standpoint, negative. Just had a significant fall off white, but that magenta hitting lower there, pretty darn clean. No steel reset, meaning steel usually we would need to see it come to zero level or dip back below cyan to signal a complete reset. Has not done that. And from a gold standpoint, we expected it to take off, and in fact did. Nothing shocking with that. The euro flattening out just a little bit because some people might be a little skeptical as to whether or not the ECB is really going to do anything. They know the Fed isn't likely to do anything, but it doesn't make the Eurozone any more attractive. This expected. Now we're into the 139 range, well within the targeting that we were expecting. Well, at least I was from that breakdown, and this is where the market says to the street, hey, you know, we've got an issue, and sooner or later that's going to become attractive for additional investment, further driving yields higher, and putting pressure on the market, actually, because that will be problematic for risk on, risk off. And this is why it becomes relevant, because as the CPI numbers, that's what everyone's going to be focused on. If they continue to rage like they should be, it's just going to be problematic. There's no other way to describe it. And that's been favorable for cryptos at this particular point. Interestingly enough, look at that, the extreme histogram, all positive extremes. And it can stay elevated for and fill up just a portion of them. The first way I look at it is where you have these two little blue lines. I would expect your first fill obviously to be at the 42 5 range, I believe is what that was right here, the low 42.580. And that's where we'd be able to assess from there if it's going to continue, and then fill the next segment, which literally takes you all the way back then towards the 39 and the original breakout bar, which was all the way down to 37,800. Clean and simple. ETH, it's very clean. I really like what it does pink bar wise. The dips are clean, usually to the 50% or markers, and then the turnaround buys. Very consistent. So that's been a hallmark, and I think that's just the added volume liquidity that you don't quite get with BTC. From a 50K standpoint, up, down, it was, that's just choppy rock. It was really clear, though, from the 5K standpoint, because we had the build, a little pop, pretty much went flat, and then we started getting a series of short signals, and then they started getting stronger as we ended up with a lot more NBI weight peaks then red leading below 23% at that particular stage. When that pivoted down, you could expect the 0% there. Stayed up for a little while, but then broke down to it. And then on the turnaround, a little bit tougher because magenta was leading, then white's leading, and then it just finally magenta takes over and you're above the peak in the 33 range back over here. So literally one of those where which one's going to fade off first. In this case it was white, and we didn't even get like a strong crossover of green above cyan or anything, so it really was that dip of orange that finally led to a green pop, and that's where things took off. But they already were signaling soft setup, but we know that any of those dips literally aren't qualified moves. When you have this extended run after this first series of bars and there was no movement above the 10 level or red dipping down, you really had to wait for that configuration to take place. First happened right here, and there was immediate spike back up. I like to see a strong move where white gets above that 10 range, and you know then you're going to get a crossover, and that's when it finally took place. You had magenta back below 25, and everything rolled over crosswise. You had the yellow below orange in this particular case too, and TOC spread. So when you get that confluence together, I usually think those are much stronger, and stronger it was because it filled a couple of positive extremes, which they were minor, just coming back to the midpoint. And so at least it gave a range, and then once that was in, recognizing where this was at, and we pretty much led with white all the way through there. And even when there was an attempted pop on the start of that, it was led by red. Then as we turn around, you look for that blue over right there, blue over the gray line, and is magenta over white, and in this case not quite. So looking into the next bar, finally took place. That would be the beginning of the transition, but red leading below 23%. I'm going to wait for the 23% break. That's just standard. That's why I turned green there. And gonna have to check that one on the code, because it's because the white was leading, even though magenta clearly above yellow. It stays through there, so I'll make the modifications for that one, because that's perfect on the turn, waiting for that 23% move. But it should stay with that until we get a flip, and in this particular case white caved early, and magenta was leading and still is above 33 in that. So from that, it's a pretty clean standpoint, a long setup. As always though, I will continue to update you, as always, well on the Skype chat at least. Trade well, we'll talk to you later.